people still buy off people. It's still about having those conversations and having that level of engagement. But digital is very much than just replacing the old world of paper, and you're advertising your business to go up against your competitors. Never lose sight of that.
So you say, for instance, you've paid for SEO ads, whatever it is, and you've got the strategy, you've got the data. How do you implement a strategy? So you've got the data, you've got some awareness in the market, people know who you are, you've got some sort of maybe inquiries. How do you then implement a strategy that's going to work over the long term?
So I think with SEO and the data that you have, it's understanding what data you've attracted. So I'm going to use another example. Say you may have a landing page on your website. I think the data capture that you choose to solicit is absolutely key. There was a piece of work that I did for a very well-known furniture brand, that we realised that when people were coming onto our landing page, that a lot of people do a response outreach within, they used to say 5 to 10 minutes while that customer was hot. It was too soon. People were kicking back. The sweet spot was more around 15, 20 minutes in. So we saw conversions, and it doesn't matter the fact that it's not an IT industry, the industry is irrelevant. It's about understanding what your sweet spot and the touch point is of your particular customer base. So if you've got your data from your SEO activity, it's really then looking at internally, who are your product champions, for example? What is it that your customer's looking for? I would always actively encourage it needs to be an outreach phone call, because we know that sadly 90% of phone calls that you make go straight to voicemail. 76% of them hardly ever return back into a return phone call. But if you were just to follow up with an email, it would either go into spam, which then you have to be really conscious about the triggers in terms of, you can be blocked because if you have, your bounce back rates, etc. But I think your landing page content is really important. It's about what do you want, set that expectation with that prospect. If you're looking to download a white paper, make it known that there's going to be a potential follow-up on the back end of any information that you give. Some people might kick back against that. But actually, for me, when you do an outreach to a business, it's about removing all the obstacles and the reasons for someone to say, I don't want to talk to you. It's managing that expectation up front. And that would be the counsel that I would give, particularly if you've got that data. Don't sit on it for a week. Don't sit on it for a fortnight. Generally, the sweet spot's about 3 days.
And as these methods you've used, TJ, you said you touched it before that you answered that question, regardless of the industry, regardless of the sector. Would you use the same methods regardless of whatever industry you went into?
Well, I have done for nearly 36 years, the last 25 years in senior exec roles, because all I know is what's worked very well for the businesses that I've then gone and used those transferable skills. And again, falling into IT, for those people that know me out there, it's common that I say that I've only been in IT 3 years. I have worked in telcos, but albeit that was quite a long time ago. And I think there is an advantage to being a certain age, because you've got a pedigree, and I can look back over my career and go, well, I went into that business, that sector, I did exactly the same methodology, and it delivered a result every time. So the methods must be right. And I think that when you've got that pedigree, no one can really tell you you're wrong. And it's proven.
Talking of being proven, TJ, I mentioned this to you at lunch, and we talked about trying to get more women into the industry and diversity. And I said to you, nothing's really changed in the last 10 years. There's lots of promotion out there, there's lots of incentives, lots of awards. And yet you've bucked the trend, because I would looked at you and I said to you over lunch, I thought I'd have never been able to get you a job. It doesn't matter about your pedigree, because you've been in another industry, even though you've done it for a long time. So for the listeners out there, how did you come into the industry? And did you have any pushback of being a seasoned professional coming into a brand new industry that can be a bit cloak and dagger, our industry, trying to get into if you haven't got the experience? So tell the listeners how you got in.
So I'll take you back to 2002, I think it was. I think it was my 30th birthday, actually. So I had been headhunted by a business that was the internal recruiting team for the Cordwell Group, John Cordwell. And it was for his Corporate For You business division. And they were looking for various associate sales directors, and they deliberately didn't want people from within the telco space. They wanted some from telco, some from IT, some from completely different industry sectors. And I joined the team as an ASD. and my role was to build the internal telesales team. So that was quite refreshing, because actually they weren't looking for your stereotypical telco sales director. Fast forward to 3 years ago, and the CEO that we used to have at Telev8 Distribution had seen that I put out on LinkedIn. I'm not looking for a sob story here. I'd lost my mum kind of 3 to 4 years around that time. And I wanted to actually go and work on the front line answering calls in the emergency services world, completely different to what I've ever done all my life. And I had a reach out, and I was basically told, it was said to me, I've got an opportunity here. How do you feel about it? And I was completely ignorant to the fact of what the IT space would be like. But what I did know is that I could drive teams, I could deliver numbers, I was good at strategy, I was great at forecasting, and I could deliver all of that. So what could go wrong, right? So then I immersed myself into this world of IT. Oh boy. And I use the word boy in inverted commas. Oh, don't mean to be rude when I say that, but it was very much a boys' club. And I think, using the terminology we talked about over lunch, loads of acronyms. I mean, I just didn't understand where they were coming from half the time. A very institutionalised sector. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
They'd worked together in a past life, or they'd been a trainee technician and they'd been grown through the ranks. But what struck me was the so little women in the roles. And a friend of mine, she's a university lecturer in IT. And she said, TJ, 35 years I've been doing this, and that 16% needle has never changed. And nor that it will change within the next 2 decades. There's a long way to go. And so what's interesting is, as I joined Telev8 Distribution, I joined as their VP of Sales. Paul Donnelly, who's the founder and the CEO, he basically booked the trend well before kind of it's now the new key thing to talk about. He took a chance on me, quoting ABBA there. I was female, I was not within the sector, all the things that actually businesses should be looking at doing now. And I was very fortunate to be asked to join the Women in Tech panel at the Acronis Summit in Dubai a couple of years ago. And there was myself and Jamie Chadwick, anyone who loves the IndyCar racing, she's a top driver there, and 3 other fantastic ladies who are now in the IT space. All of them were acing their game, but none of them had come from an IT background. So this was a great example of where the businesses that they were working for had seen something very different in them. They saw skills, transferable skills. Because as I said when I was on that panel, you can teach product, you can teach service. What you can't teach is the aptitude to drive, the aptitude to deliver, the aptitude to change. And I think sadly, with recruitment with the IT space as I've seen it, is the fact that people see recruitment as an issue. That job role comes sliding across the desk and it's a bit like, oh my God, I've got to recruit. And see it as, oh my God, revert to type, let's recruit someone we know. But to me, that's the opportunity I don't necessarily agree, Marc, with 50-50. I think it's more about the right person for the job. And actually, there's a lot of skill out there, C-suite and exec level, that is just totally untapped resource, because there's this fear of, how do I interview someone who doesn't know technology? I know all the tech stuff, that's easy to review someone against, but how do I assess someone's skill set? I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And I think when you recruit, you've got to look inward. Am I skilled enough to resource somebody externally?